Here be a jaunty sea shanty from me boyhood.
So starting off with Dark Souls 1, I think this is a pretty fucking cool game. Except for when it isn't. It took 26 hours to beat all the bosses, including the DLC, on my first try. And the worst part is, a third of that time was just backtracking because you have to unlock fast travel. Let me repeat that. You have to prove your strength to unlock fast travel. There is unironically a lore reason behind it. So backtracking is the real challenge here, even though people always say this game is difficult but fair. That shit wasn't true. This game is hilariously easy. The only bosses that even remotely gave me trouble were the ones that had me fight multiple people at the same time, and Gwyn is gonna go down as the easiest final boss I've ever fought. Now, in all fairness, they say Gwyn's dead the second you start the game, so the fact that he even showed up in the first place is pretty impressive. I understand that you are by no means fighting him at his full strength, but one thing I liked about Dark Souls 2 is that they did the same thing with King Vendrick, only to later reveal that there's like 5,000 final bosses after him. Then you got Dark Souls 3, where these two assholes combined are more difficult than every boss in Dark Souls 1. What I'm saying here is that the other games have no shortage of challenges, and it's not even like you can bring the DLC into this, since you have to do it before Gwyn or you'll be forced into New Game Plus. Which means once you unlock the final boss, you have to stop and instead go to this lake and pretend to be a 12-year-old Japanese girl. Then the real game happens, and then you go back to the final boss. Why not just have an option to manually start New Game Plus? That's so gay. Dark Souls 1 is overrated. Let me just get that sentence out of the way right now. Anyone who calls this game a masterpiece needs to have some serious legislation passed against them, because Skyrim came out 2 months after this, and no one seems to talk about that. This game deserves praise, don't get me wrong, but thank God sequels exist. I guess this is the most accessible Dark Souls game, and maybe people confuse that for quality. But even then, it depends on what your idea of accessible even is. Yeah, the pace is slower, so you can get more comfortable with the rules, but then the game compensates for that by making it impossible to do things quickly, like upgrading your weapon if you don't see Andre's do-it-your-damn-self starter pack. I'm torn here though, because once you are finally ready to keep going forward in this game, it's fun to explore. A lot more fun than in Dark Souls 2 and 3, but does that balance things out? Honestly, almost, but it depends on the day of the week for me. That's why it's so hard to give these games a final score. Dark Souls 1 can be anywhere from a 5 to a 7 out of 10 depending on what mood I happen to be in. Now, if it pisses you off that I said that, good, leave and never come back here, because you're gonna hate what I have to say about Dark Souls 2.
Good morning.
Where am I? Where's Reznov?
Hey, wake up, sleepyhead.
Who the hell are you?
Hey, wake up.
Hey!
So cute and you.
Who are you people?
Just look at your little face.
What do you want from me?
Sorry. Did you sleep okay?
Fuck you!
What time is it?
Kiss my ass!
So a lot of people seem to dislike Dark Souls 2, and I'm not even going to pretend like I understand why. This game is great, and it fixed every problem I had with Dark Souls 1. On top of that, this game has my favorite Dark Souls boss ever, the horse boss, entirely because it is the only Dark Souls boss that involves a horse. If every boss in this game was a horse, I would be fine with that. If the King of Drangleic was a horse, this would be the best game ever made. But yeah, I think a lot of people hate this game because they were loyal to the first one and don't like change. I think it's fine though, I just mainly take issue with two systems that they added to make things more difficult. The Ring of Binding is a very important item because the penalty for dying is that a percentage of your maximum health goes away. Now this is thematic because you're supposed to be cursed, but the game never tells you that this ring is there to fix that. And for whatever reason, it's next to the entrance to the old Dragon Slayer boss fight, which is one of 3 paths you can take from the beginning. And even if you do, the enemies are pretty tough. You're not really supposed to go there first. Now there's other ways to deal with this mechanic, obviously, and once you finally have the ring, you're basically good to go and ignore the curse entirely, but one system you can't ignore is the approach to weapon durability in this game. Basically, it's not a problem until it is, and then it's really annoying. Other than that though, they honestly didn't add all that much offensive stuff to this game, it's just more Dark Souls. Now to those of you who don't understand why I even bothered saying that last sentence, trust me, that made someone really mad. You're one of the good ones though. And as for the features that work well, dual wielding is fully embraced this time, and it opens up a shit ton of customization and replayability, along with bonfire aesthetics that let you activate New Game Plus in specific areas for key items. I especially like the max level Chloranthy ring coming from the horse boss on New Game Plus, further adding to the reasons why it's my favorite, actually. Something else you can do, if you use your noggin, is combine these features together. So let's say you find a really cool weapon you like, and you want to dual wield it, but it's a one-time only thing. You can just use a bonfire aesthetic to make another copy of it and get 2 of them. Now to be fair, I don't think this works on everything, but it still makes you feel like the possibilities are endless. While at the same time, it's important to use bonfire aesthetics wisely since you can seriously fuck up your progress in an area if you're not too careful. And basically, it's just stuff like this that makes Dark Souls 2 the most complex and consistent Dark Souls experience you can get. It's not the best, the Artorias DLC is the best, but it's pretty good. Of course, that doesn't stop the nitpicking faggots from leaving terrible reviews on this game. It really is the stupidest shit too, like how the enemies aren't unique enough. First off, that's not true. You're forgetting about the horse boss. But no, if we're talking bosses, the argument here is that there's too many that are guys in heavy armor with weapons. Now, ignoring the fact that Dark Souls 1 literally reuses the same demon model for 3 of its fights, and ignoring the fact that this problem is twice as bad in Dark Souls 3, I think you really have to be trying to find something bad about a game to stoop to the low of that criticism. And as I said before, I don't care if all the bosses look exactly the same. What I care about is how memorable they are mechanically. I would argue that Dark Souls 1 bosses go down so easily that they're kinda forgettable. Don't make me bring a pinwheel. I'll do it. I will turn back halfway through this video and roast Dark Souls 1 again. Don't make me fucking do it. But as for unique designs, every Dark Souls game has amazing looking bosses. Anyone who says otherwise is just ignorant. And as for non-boss enemies, literally the first thing you fight in this game is an ogre. Are we not gonna talk about how iconic these guys are?
Give me that butt! No! Give me that butt! No! Give me that butt! Give me that butt!
Then you got elephant guards. That alone was worth the $40 for this game. And who could forget the swamp monsters from Shrine of Amana? Unless, of course, you block them from your memory, in which case you get a pass on that one. That's something else a lot of people don't like about this game, the ambushy enemies. Again, every Dark Souls game has enemies like this, but then you get these people reviewing Dark Souls 2, and it's like that one Bird Box meme where the guy has his eyes open as fuck versus that whore with the blindfold on. See, the difference is the enemies in Dark Souls get faster in each installment. So by the time you get to Dark Souls 2, they can actually catch up to you. And believe it or not, this led to a remake of Dark Souls 2 called Scholar of the First Sin. Now, I haven't played this version, but I understand they attempted to fix some of the more annoying enemy placements with it. My personal opinion, and this is the first time I've ever said this in my life, but get good? It's really not that bad. Honestly, I'd say Dark Souls 3 is when stuff like this got out of hand. Speaking of which, Dark Souls 3 is a nostalgia bait game that's carried by its graphics and scenery. Yeah, I said it. So the first thing you do in this game is fight Gunder, who is genuinely so much fun no matter how many times I fight him. And one of my favorite pastimes, actually, is watching people I know try to beat him, as I slowly reveal the minor detail that you can't increase the power of your character until he's dead. Which means if you can't beat the first boss of Dark Souls 3, then that just means you're bad at video games. And I think it goes without saying at this point, guys, but if you ever want your dick sucked, to just one-shot Gunder on a fresh character in front of a girl. There is no greater display of masculinity. She'll have to do it. You probably think I'm kidding too, but believe me, I've done it a couple of times myself. The dick sucking, not the other part. But yeah, the Asylum Demon and the Last Giant don't even compare. This is my favorite first boss in video game history. So after that amazing first impression, you reach the shrine. What comes next? The Lords of Arbitrary 4 guys that you have to beat this time, obviously. Also, they fuse into one super duper guy as the final boss, so just in case you were wondering, there is not a story in this game. You got the Abyss Watchers, which is multiple guys. Let's not talk about how they only have one chair to fit in, though. Just completely erase that from your mind. Then you got Yorm the Giant, who was almost cool. Almost! If not for him being the easiest boss in the game. Then Aldrich, Lorien, and Lothric, who I constantly mix up for one another. They're all just a bunch of white sissy boy paraplegics. Also, Aldrich is just way less cool Gwendolyn from the first game. Literally, from a lore perspective. See, some of Dark Souls 3 either takes place in the same areas or exists as a callback to the other games. Mainly the first one, because no one likes Dark Souls 2, other than me. And while I could sit here and point out all the ripoffs and similarities, and then go into a conversation about the differences between paying homage to something and ripping it off,
Little man. None of this matters.
entirely because Dark Souls 2 set the precedent of how original a sequel in this franchise is supposed to be! Which is to say, sort of. This game, though, barely? But even then, it gets to the point of being offensive, because this game loves taking cool shit from Dark Souls 1 and doing it again, but in a slightly less cool way. Like the DLCs for this game, I can make a whole separate video on how unoriginal the Painted World of Ariendel is. But the one that fucked me the most was the final boss of the Ringed City, Slave Knight Santa looking ass over here. The final few seconds of his intro cinematic is a shot-for-shot remake of the Artorias one. Now, I want to get mad about this. The thing is, I'm not technically supposed to be reviewing the DLCs in this video, but the conversation here is clearly what gives From Software the right to continuously do this shit in Dark Souls 3. And I want to come back and address that after my next point, this game's pacing and its approach to difficulty. Dark Souls 1 and 2 were relatively slow compared to this game, where here, every enemy is pretty much incapable of stopping for 2 fractions of a second to rev up their next attack, which is very annoying, and if you don't have a fast-paced build, you're fucked, because damn near every boss in this game either summons a clone of themselves, gets a second health bar halfway through the fight and gains new fire abilities, or resurrects themselves just when you thought you beat them. I call this the holy trinity of unsatisfying boss mechanics, and it's something that progressively got more and more cancerous as these games went on. And when I first played Dark Souls 3, I thought, oh, this is just how these games are. But no, the other two did perfectly fine without mechanics like this eclipsing the others. Now don't get me wrong, I enjoy the challenge, and I forced myself to solo all the bosses in Dark Souls for this review, but why does it feel like these guys are people you're trying to duel in World of Warcraft? Where you win and they just talk cash shit like, oh, I wasn't even trying, and I saw you go to use that health potion, noob. Imagine what would have happened if I was trying. The problem here is obvious, escalating complexity, and this is also a problem that World of Warcraft has, where every boss needs to up the ante from the last one to keep things interesting for returning players, but at a certain point it just gets ridiculous. Now, a lot of people defend this by saying that Dark Souls 3 is meant to be a send-off for the franchise, and so these two criticisms I make can just be swept to the side, because this game is supposed to pay homage. It's meant to be the ultimate Dark Souls challenge. It's supposed to be the ultimate Dark Souls experience. The problem with this argument is that there is no rule that says it has to be that way. There is not a prophecy written in the Dead Sea Scrolls or some shit that Dark Souls has to be a trilogy. But for whatever reason, From Software avoids that concept like the plague to the point where they have to keep making other games that are PlayStation exclusives. Like, why? These are all the same game, just with different approaches to the formula, but God forbid I be able to play these two on Steam. And as for the difficulty, again, Dark Souls 1 is so fucking easy, and yet people still swear by that game. Maybe because it isn't annoying as fuck and constantly asking you to shoot steroids into your ballsack and be screaming all the time like Tyler 1 while you're playing it. Again, not necessarily complaining, and even if I was, like I said, the visuals in this game more than carry it through all the problems I've talked about here. The Boreal Valley is my favorite video game zone, period. This saturated image of it has actually been my desktop background for as long as I can remember now. The scale and spectacle of this game is also amazing in its own right. The entirety of Archdragon Peak is a perfect example of that. Not that the other two games didn't have similar areas with their own unique spin. And really that's the point of this video. Each entry into this franchise is different, but that's what gives them their personality. It's not necessarily a question of which game is good and which game is bad, it's a question of which one speaks to you the most. I respect this franchise as a whole, and I wanted to give it back the tough love that it gave me. It's just a shame that Dark Souls 1 isn't tough.